Hey everybody, it's Tom here with kind of a daily ratings PSA. So as you all know, for weeks and weeks, we ask you all to go to the donations tab and kindly send a donation our way. But for weeks and weeks, the site was broken. But then we found out about it, and we fixed it, or so we thought. We even said on the podcast, hey, the site's fixed now. You can go ahead and send us a donation. However, the site was still broken. But now, finally, I can say with relative certainty and a pinky promise that everything on the donation site is finally working properly. So we thank all of you who did try to donate, all you producers, and we do see you, and we will give you a shout out on next episode as well. So we'll skip the donation segment for this episode, but as far as going forward, everything is finally working. But we thank you all for your patience, and now, enjoy the show. Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Sonic the Hedgehog and newly released Sonic the Hedgehog 2, directed by Jeff Fowler, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, and newly released Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore, all directed by David Yates. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. How was your fantastical week of movies?
good tie-in.
Thank you.
That, yeah. It was all right. You know, it was all right.
A little tough to get through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't expecting how much of a children's film Sonic was. I didn't really watch the original one when it came out in 2020.
So you weren't really were you preparing for a kids movie, but one that adults could enjoy too?
Yeah, and especially, I mean, I am a fan of the video games, so there was some enjoyment there. But this is, I mean, capital K kids movie with these. So that combined, not the biggest Harry Potter fan, but, you know, excited by the format with these. The fact that we were able to fit a 5-chunk, you know, with 2 new releases.
Oh, for the podcast reasons you were excited.
Oh, yeah. Always for the podcast. Nothing for the, you know.
Yeah, we did this once before where we did like the 2 Space Jams movies.
Yep.
And then we
and
did
Suicide Squad.
Right, the Suicide Squad just because of the new movies. So
which has caused confusion among some of our, some of our personal listeners.
If you want to donate and producers want to write in, that's totally fine. But, you know, we're just doing things like this show. It's a little bit different where we're not ending with both new movies.
Yeah.
We decided we're going to do the Sonics first.
Yep.
And then we're just going to do the Fantastic Beasts. You know, It's just a little bit different, but, you know.
I like when the homework for a series fits in within the 5-episode confines,
it's beautiful.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is great I think producers will enjoy this one. And honestly, I like the idea. Like, I would want to sit down and listen to all the Fantastic Beasts.
Sure.
And we said it, we talked about it before.
Yep.
Especially when it was coming out in the theater, we were just like, I think it's important that we get all these 3.
Yeah.
Who wants
absolutely.
to sit here and hear your interpretation of film number 3 and we have nothing from you from 1 and 2?
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
And these are such sequels to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. There's homework needed. So
I thought it worked out really well. Mm-hmm. But okay, so we're going to start with just the kind of the 2-film franchise here. We're going to go back to 2020. This is Sonic the Hedgehog. And, I mean, what do we have with this kid's movie?
Yeah, so this kid's movie. How are you going to crucify this kid's movie? Sonic the Hedgehog, This movie is Sega's first attempt into Hollywood, and no doubt created pressure for others to follow, and soon to follow. We see, of course, the announcement in 2020 or 2021 of the Mario movie as well.
Yeah,
so I think Sega has kind of unleashed the floodgates by trying to produce such a high-end IP like Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, this is big mainline Sega.
Yeah.
That they have.
The biggest.
Yeah,
really.
it really is. Sonic is the blue blur. He is the rad hedgehog that goes way too fast, and in this movie is given an origin story for him landing on Earth. He meets up with James Marsden, who I will forever refer to as Cop Friend in this. and he will always, maybe for his entire career, be referred to as Cop Friend now on the podcast. And of course, we have a tussle with Dr. Robotnik, Dr. Eggman himself, played by Jim Carrey. No other than Jim Carrey in this. Overall, I think this movie works fine. I never saw a need for a Sonic movie, but maybe that's why I'm not a studio exec. I did not see the potential money that would be made off of this.
I'll be honest.
2 films.
I was almost a little bit surprised that it took this long. I mean, you see just the absolute draining of the Marvel, and I don't know. I guess you would categorize this as superhero.
Maybe.
It's very weird. It's a weird subgenre, but it's basically the past 20 years have been one with the superheroes, but it's just been big titles. Let's get the big titles. And for Sonic, I mean, it's huge.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's a huge name that hasn't really been on screen before. So I kind of was waiting for. I'm surprised it took this long.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. And like I said, I think the floodgates are going to open. I mean, if we define the 2010s as superhero, the 2020s have a very high potential for it to be video game dominated.
Yeah, superhero.
We already talked about Uncharted and already on the podcast and whatnot. So I do think things are we are at the cliff of it. This movie does little to get a recommendation from me. I thought it was a little bit pulling teeth for 90 minutes, but like I said, this is very much capital K kids movie. I'll go into a little bit more in just a bit. As far as Sonic being portrayed here, we have the burden of an origin story, which of course last week was the focus with all the superhero movies. Yeah. And maybe you bring up a good point, Tom, because maybe the misunderstanding here is that we need to kind of have a similar structure to superhero movies for a kid's palate today to watch this movie.
Because this is kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Like this isn't we're PG territory now, not PG-13.
Yeah.
I just think again, it's just a big title, so why not?
Yeah.
I mean, we're redoing big titles that we already did. Like, you know what I mean?
That's a fair point. I would rather something original.
So it's like, okay, let's do the Mario again. Okay,
Yep.
Sonic, sure, why not?
Right,
you know, I'm surprised we don't have a Donkey Kong one or something.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
it's soon enough. Soon enough. I think. Well, I think isn't Seth Rogen playing Donkey Kong in the Mario movie, the Chris Pratt Mario movie?
I have no idea.
We'll see. We'll see. Sonic in this is, I think, strategically portrayed as a kid, though, in this, because his life on Earth, he really lives a kid fantasy. These are very Home Alone vibes. He likes comic. He likes junk food. He does the flossing dance. I had to say that on a recorded podcast. Fantastic. But he's strategically portrayed as a kid, and him with Cop Friend kind of serves as a buddy movie, but also kind of a parental movie as well, which I think is interesting. I don't think it's amazing, but it is something that I think is an important follow through and understanding the demographics here, and ultimately the parents that are going to see it with their kids. So Sonic features high-speed sequences where slow motion is used to depict his speed. Of course, the blue blur is faster than a bolt of lightning. So these sequences are really meant to be the highlight of this film. Thankfully, the sequel has more to go off of and more creative setup to to use for Sonic, but unfortunately for this first one, it really just boils down to the Quicksilver scenes in the newest X-Men films, or I shouldn't say new, I mean, they're not new anymore, but the most recent X-Men iterations, where Quicksilver is moving so fast it stops time around him. This gimmick is ripped off directly, and I would say overall a little bit less impactful for how much the visuals are just 100% CGI, you know?
Yeah, of course.
So there's when Sonic is interacting with slow motion or telling a joke or cracking a joke with this, it comes off not as like, wow, you know, this is great to look at like it did in those Quicksilver scenes, and overall is a little bit of an imitator. Let's talk about the comedy. Of course, Sonic is the wisecracking, kind of anti mascot to Mario at the time in the 90s, so they need to make him a rad dude. Part of my critique is the comedy in this. I would say it's just far too pop culture centered. Sonic is supposed to be attitude. He's not supposed to be Deadpool, you know what I mean? And it comes off like Deadpool, like he's making
like Kid Deadpool.
Kid Deadpool. Actually, that's a great man.
But
I should have ran this from my notes. Deadpool is perfect.
So how do you make the distinction? Because Sonic is supposed to be kind of like, even in the games, he comes like he's supposed to be kind of like wisecracking, fresh mouth, kind of, but like this. Trying to a cool kid. He's like too cool for school a little bit, but he is a kid. But it almost seems like that would make sense, Kid Deadpool, or there's an imbalance still of comedy. Like
it's just so pop culture referential. Jokes are constantly boiled down to, you know, this movie, or you remember when this movie it's like this, and it's
no good.
Yeah, and that's also not Sonic. I mean, I'm not trying to fall on the sword over a video game depiction of a children's movie.
No, it's not Sonic at all.
But
it's not timeless either.
Exactly. Where I feel this relates to is it is already dated jokes. Watching this from a 2020.
Oh, yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, it already feels dated in its jokes. And maybe that's just the nature of these kids' movies. They're cranked out for the year. And, I mean, is a kid really going to return to it? You know,
Sonic is like a huge Sega franchise that's supposed to be lasting, you know?
Yeah. Again, luckily, the sequel doesn't fall into this much of a trap. Granted, the comedy is related to Sonic's isolation on Earth. He is absorbing the culture through the things he kind of steals and collects, trash and whatnot. And, maybe there's a reason in that he's making pop culture references, but it just comes off very dated already. Again, a 2020 movie, already dated, which I think is pretty critical. And I just don't think the comedy works. Is a kid really going to understand all the movie references being made? I don't think that's even good comedy for them.
It's supposed to be there for the adults, probably,
and
it fails. For the
telling you, it was, like I said, pulling teeth for 90.
Yeah.
Ben Schwartz largely doesn't work as Sonic in his voice. I like him in a lot of comedic performances. He's very funny in Parks and Rec. This comes off just a bit too annoying, and mix that with the callbacks. It's just like, all right. And for me, I just really wasn't enjoying Sonic on screen in this film.
Okay.
Jim Carrey mainly works because the comedy is really his own manic energy. It's definitely a little cringy. It's definitely still a little shackled in this movie. We see it kind of unfold a lot better in the next film.
Is it Joker-ish? Not Joker-ish. The Riddler?
No, I wish.
Like where he's just like insane?
Maybe the sequel, yes. We're getting
into
into Riddler territory. For more reasons than you even know, Tom. But yeah, it's I don't know. He's shackled by, again, this kind of Earth plot. He's supposed to be not a normal guy.
Right.
You know, he's still a little shackled. He's not fully mustache twirling Dr. Eggman.
Okay, gotcha.
And yeah, I think it's good overall. I would say Jim Carrey is what's there for the adults. You know what I mean? Especially the casting of this.
Yeah, well, there's not much else there.
Yeah, exactly. So,
did you find yourself? So James Marsden plays Tom, who is the buddy cop, right? Were you sitting there and being like, "Oh, well, this is just Tails"? Did it have those vibes or no? Like totally its own character.
Yeah, totally its own character, and definitely in the second one when Tails is introduced.
Right, we have Tails coming. Right.
Yeah, it is it's his own thing, and again, it's not terrible. but it's also kind of, why can't we just get a Sonic movie about Sonic properties? You know what I mean? Or Sonic aspects.
There's enough. There's enough there.
Why do we need this buddy cop kind of formula
Yeah.
to it? So I would say, again, the overabundance of an origin story. I mean, if we are going to pull a mainline IP like Sonic out of the closet and put them in front of the screen, I mean, is there no goodwill that comes with that people can kind of just, pun intended, have a running start with Sonic?
Right.
You know? Can we not just hit the ground running and just have Sonic in his own world, and Eggman
could be cool.
Yeah, exactly. So luckily the sequel sheds a lot of this origin story baggage. Not entirely, but because it is, it is just a very generic movie, but it sheds a lot of that. I don't care about Cop Friend. I don't care about, Sonic's loneliness. Put me in the fantastical world that he comes from, that is teased in the beginning as well. So, yeah, I was just surprised by, that we couldn't just have a Sonic movie for Sonic, just with how defined the character is and how much people know it. I'm hoping we don't see the same with the Mario movie. I'm hoping the Mario movie can at least, kind of
breathe some new life and some interesting and let's be, Mario
let's
movie.
Be
Make it a
Mario.
Yes.
Let's not, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I don't think it's too much to ask, but as far as talking about this multi-million-dollar concept, you could be saying, well, where are you kind of coming actually critiquing and negative with this? And I would say it is money specifically, Tom. Do I have some news for you? There is some egregious placement of ads in this film. Downright vile ad placement. There is a full-blown Zillow ad in this that they go and they navigate the homepage on Zillow for a little bit and point out features. Real bad. By far the worst, though, is an entirely separate Olive Garden ad placement that comes up 3 times. Characters say, when you're there, your family.
You are kidding me.
3 times. It is unreal. I paused the movie immediately and started taking notes. It's just like, this is no. And then it comes up 2 other times. It is
yikes,
vile.
Yeah, that's bad.
Placement.
No one wants that. No one wants ads shoved down their throats.
And it's so manipulative too, to pack it in a kids movie. I think there's something honestly gross about that. It's an absolute cardinal sin for me, and I just it is unacceptable, disgusting. Like I said, I think this movie works perfectly fine in the end product. I think the horrific ad placement knocks it down a notch for me, and I think the comedy is a little bit of a miss with the already dated jokes on the pop culture callbacks. We're going to go ahead and give Sonic the Hedgehog a 40.
Ooh, 40. Okay. Yeah, I can't say very surprised by it. It's kind of a shame because, I don't know, Sonic's such a fun character.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, the game's relatively, and the age is 8. I remember playing the game still as a kid.
Yeah.
But they're definitely aging, but it's still, it's timeless. People even if you're not a video game guy or or younger than us, people know Sonic.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to have a little bit more care taken into this intellectual property.
Oh, for sure. Especially if clearly this movie is a success to get a sequel, and
it was a success enough. Yeah. It made enough millions for sure. So, it made its money back.
Yeah. So I think Sega's feeling fine about this, but this first iteration is just there's just a little bit too much baggage with it for me to recommend it.
40 is upsetting, but not surprising.
Right.
So let's move on here. So that was 2020. That was 2020. So now already 2022, like the turnaround was pretty quick. We have Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And what do we have here? Now that our most of our characters are established, does the story get better from here?
Oh, absolutely. It loses a lot of that baggage. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is the same director here. Same writing team, same cast, and now we have Idris Elba as Knuckles in this, which is
cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's it's a lot of fish out of water jokes. He doesn't understand the culture, but it's still good. And honestly, didn't touch on it on the previous entry, but I will say a positive note for both of these is the CGI quality. I mean, if you think about back to when this film was first coming out, there was a terrible internet backlash on the first design of Sonic, if you remember. He had
really?
Oh yeah. If you didn't know about this,
No.
his eyes looked different. He looked like the kid from Jumanji when he turns into a monkey. It looked really bad, and so much so that they went back and redesigned all the CGI, which is what you can do when you have an entirely CGI character. A committee mentality or Twitter mentality.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, this is a much better movie, thankfully, as the film has grown into its own style.
Cool.
Instead of the buddy cop kid fantasy that we have a proper fantasy adventure as the theme for Sonic to embark on. Part of this reversal is in performances. I think Jim Carrey is an even bigger role and matches the chaotic energy of Dr. Eggman so much better. There is just so much Ham here, down to his accumulation of power. It works so much better on screen. You can see that he's unshackled and trying to be as weird as possible. And
that's kind of what you want.
Absolutely, it's what you want.
You
Dr. Eggman is a cartoon villain. He literally mustache twirling.
Yeah, he's a crazy a crazy villain, like actual mustache twirling villain.
Exactly.
And then it's interesting with the movie though, because we're picking up another good guy character. So it's almost just like it would have been nice maybe to drop Buddy Cop.
Yeah.
And then you're also picking up another villain.
Yep, exactly.
But it all played well together. Like Knuckles and Dr. Robotnik, and then you had Tails along with Buddy Cop and Sonic.
Exactly. There's a lot more time put into Tails and Sonic bonding, and we see more and more cop friend transition into, instead of being a friend, if anything, it's actually a theme in this movie. He transitions into much more of a parental type of view of Sonic,
fine.
Which is
that's what you should. That's what it should be almost.
It's semi-decent writing, and that to be fair, that was present in the first one as well. I was a little bit too distracted by the Olive Garden, though.
Okay.
I want to praise Jim Carrey here because, I mean, you could look at this and say, oh my God, he's really hamming it up. This is the role to ham with.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, it's so true.
So I think there is a follow through and legitimately entertaining on screen. He really is great. I think overall as well, the comedy writing is better. I think a lot more creative setup is used in this movie that we aren't tied to an origin story. While it's not all gone, the pop culture references and the pop culture comedy is very much toned back,
Good.
Which is big.
It's going to be more not timeless then.
Yeah, and you said it perfectly. As far as time, I mean, is it really so important to call a kids movie timeless? I don't know, but I mean, there's a difference when you compare this movie to anything Pixar, anything Disney. You know what I mean?
Like old Disney, even like going back in the old Disney stuff. There is something. Yeah. One thing you hated about the new Space Jam was just the constant. They were kept on being like, "Have you seen this character? Have you seen this character?" Just like there's this also. It's
the Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, and it's the pointing out of things that's just like. Keep me in this world.
Yes.
If you're setting up Sonic and giving me this world, I don't need the extra.
Sonic's cool enough too.
Yeah, you don't need that extra. Like, what are you doing? I don't want to watch a 2020 movie and it already be dated.
Oh yeah,
especially for kids' film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wish I actually wrote down some of those jokes because
right.
you could tell how dated they were. Unfortunately, this film does kind of fall into the same pitfalls as the previous film. Soundtrack, which I didn't really mention on the previous one, but is a great example of the kind of soulless corporateness behind this,
generic.
The moneymaker
generic,
behind this.
vanilla, yeah.
Yeah, songs sometimes don't even play for 15 seconds, which is kind of makes me wonder if they were trying to like get it in free or something like that. Some sort of licensing tactic. But...
Was there a main score for the movie, or was it all just like hit songs?
No, there is a score.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it play off? Like, were you getting any cool old school Sega vibes.
No, definitely no chiptune, no 8-bit kind of in the composition of the score, which is
that would be interesting.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be in the score, but just in the movie, something that would literally be a type of a portal back to when people were sitting down and playing the game and stuff.
Absolutely. You know, or very notable, Sonic in the early 2000s has a very distinct music style through a band called Crush 40. That is very iconic, just as iconic as that chiptune style to the music.
It's a shame that they just went generic cookie cutter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and again, my critique here is not a matter of preference or taste, is that it comes off corporate very specifically.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I'll tell you what else is corporate. A goddamn Four Seasons ad.
Are you serious?
They have a tropical resort that they go to, and wow, do I just know everything about the Four Seasons on this tropical resort? Maybe like short of the taxi I end of the legal entity. You know what I mean? I know everything about it, and still we are haunted by the ghost of Olive Garden past as it's brought up again. The Olive Garden one, to be fair, maybe it was almost like a weird self-referential type of dig at that Olive Garden,
Very
but
weird.
it's again 2 times it's in the movie. Like it's why are we talking about Olive Garden?
You said
and
3
Sonic?
times. Yeah, you said 3 times.
Well, 3 times in the first one, 2 times this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wait, even Olive Garden again?
Yes, Olive Garden again.
It wasn't just the Four Seasons.
It is-
So
no.
it's a Four Seasons commercial and
Yeah,
an Olive Garden.
They dumped Zillow for 4 seasons, obviously for the resort shoot. You know what I mean?
And they brought up Olive Garden another 2 times. What is the deal?
I
Inside joke at that point?
I don't know. I know. Well, I think what it really is, unfortunately, is that it's them looking the studio at, well, what will the family want to do with their kids? It's
After the
destinations. I think they dropped Zillow because kids aren't buying apartments. It's vacation. It's Olive Garden. It's let's go to eat after it, or you know what I mean.
When you're here, your family, right?
Right?
I wonder if Olive Garden sales went up after the showings of these movies.
I would like a geographic map of every Olive Garden proximity to a theater, and
That's
then
good.
track their. Yeah.
But very strange. But okay, I would assume.
Soulless.
Is it funny in the second one then? Because you're revisiting it.
The
It's just
Olive Garden one was a little bit funny. Oh boy, it is. But the ad placement is there. The money making principle that this is a vehicle.
It's kind of gross. It's got an ickiness to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So slightly better than the first one, but also I was at least in a little bit of a more of an appreciation for the unique aspects of this film, because again, we're not dealing with like Montana as the setting. We're dealing with true action adventure, ruins, mountaintops, a lot more interesting stuff. One critique that may sound a little bit stupid, but no joke is important. Sonic does not run enough in this film. It's kind of like a no-duh.
It is like a no-brainer, yeah.
But he's always in cars and driving cars and passenger in cars. At least in the first film, the lack of running that was done to maybe create some bonding with him and Cop Friend was a little bit of a plot point, but man, it's just like, why is Sonic ever in a car when he can go so fast he stops time? Like,
and Tails is fast too. It's
absolutely. Yeah, they're all fast. It's fast animals. But yeah, it may sound a little petty. It may sound a little nitpicky, especially for a kid's film. But honestly,
it's kind of true though.
A kid's gonna want to watch Sonic run.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, why is he in a car? But like I said, overall, this film works like the previous. I would say this very much should have just been Sonic 1. There is very little origin story baggage that is left in this film. There are the few callbacks to the previous film that set up jokes, especially around Eggman's henchmen. Honestly, we could have probably just worked into a more condensed Act 1 of the first film. Like, really, like, knives out, cut the first film down. That is Act 1 of this film. I think it would have worked fine, honestly. Just flat out better as a action adventure movie. And I think a product of that is a better product for, or a result of that is a better product for kids. I mean, I'm not losing the understanding that the intended demographic is little boys and little girls,
Yeah, definitely.
So I think this more exciting approach to the action adventure is much better suited. Sonic's speed is now shown in mountaintops and crumbling ruins, and it's just so much more better than having his speed be a punchline to talk about the Flash or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want that.
Those are the follow-throughs we're talking about.
Good. I mean, that's a good improvement then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus, on the shoulders of giants, or should I say on the shoulders of a very corporate, soulless first iteration of this movie. But I would say either way, my recommendation here is not to waste time on the first film and jump directly to the sequel, especially if you have even an ounce of knowledge of what Sonic is. We're going to go ahead and give Sonic the Hedgehog 2 a 59.
All right, 59. That's a good improvement.
Yeah,
it's a 19% improvement.
Yeah, we're talking about a 19-point jump.
Yeah, 19 is pretty good, especially because oftentimes the second movie is so much more worse.
True,
59.
Yeah,
that's a good one. That's a good one to sit down with the kids or to put on for the kids, and you can go and do something in the house or something. That's
Absolutely.
59. That's okay.
Still holds a lot of the kid fantasy that Sonic has. He has a little party and whatnot, which I think is important. And it has a Home Alone vibe.
Yeah.
to it.
I think an adult 59 is great because the kids are going to love it more than that.
Oh, for sure.
And then you can get through it.
Yes, absolutely. It's not pulling teeth.
Yeah. All right, very good. Okay, 59 for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That's a nice little nugget. That's a nice improvement.
Good. I'm glad.
But okay, so that's it for the Sonics. And apparently there is Sonic the Hedgehog 3
already
has announced or something like that.
Wow.
Somewhat in the works, yeah.
So that's proof of the moneymaker aspect there.
I guess they kind of, I guess so. Okay, so we're done with that franchise. We're going to move on now to much bigger franchise, Fantastic Beasts. We're going to take it back to 2016. This is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. What did we have with this first implementation of, a further expansion into the Harry Potter world?
Yeah. And that's a great way to introduce it because this is really expanded universe for Harry Potter. A lot of these characters, a lot of these events are either noted in the books or in the movies in passing, or we see obviously certain characters much older. David Yates is the longtime director of this franchise since, I believe, Order of the Phoenix. Basically, for non-Harry Potter fans, when it started getting darker. That is largely responsible because of David Yates' directing.
And that's great to have that commitment that he was given the reins for this long.
Oh,
it's kind of
and
J.K.
especially with a new franchise, technically speaking.
And J.K. Rowling is right there with the writing.
Yes,
all the way
J.K. is all the way through on this one, for better or worse. This could definitely be a bad for you. Yates is, of course, responsible for that darker feel that later Harry Potter films do get some criticism for, that they lose the magic of what these movies are going for, or at least originally went for. And I feel like every true Harry Potter fan has a hot take on JK and
for sure.
Yeah, so listen, I'm not getting involved in that. I would not count myself primarily in the fan base, but I think these are fine movies. I just don't have a lot of nostalgic attachment for them. This spin-off franchise presents an interesting opportunity, though, for admirers of the series, because for the first time we don't have required reading to really appreciate the film.
It's true.
There is a first time we can kind of just enjoy the setting and the themes.
And people already know the fantasticalness of the world. Mm-hmm. We kind of get that whole thing. We've had 7 or 8 movies of wand carrying and what comes along with that. So we are pretty primed and ready to go.
Yeah,
which is cool as an audience.
Exactly. So and that first time discovery of something brand new. It's not you don't have someone leaning in your ear and saying, "Hey, this was not the way it was in the books," or something.
Sure.
Which I felt plagued that original franchise.
As with any big franchise.
Sure.
Yeah.
The first Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them stars Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander, a magical creature researcher that travels to New York to accidentally unleash the magical beasts he studies into the wizarding world. The movie has an equal focus around this, and then also, to its detriment, the government agency that enforces magic law in New York to set up greater events in the background story. I'll touch on it a few times, but I think what keeps this film from being really, really great is it just fundamentally misunderstands what works and what is the better part of this film. The better part of this film being the Fantastic Beasts, and not the messy wizard politics and government agencies and overarching story that will be more and more the through line of what this series focuses on. More and more the question of why is it called Fantastic Beasts at all when we're barely focusing on, what is actually this first movie. And Newt Scamander's research into these creatures then.
Right, okay.
I think, like I said, what keeps most of these films afloat, except for, some of the bad ones that, or I should say what maybe even keeps those bad ones from being truly awful is the world building that JK infuses into the most mundane items. I think, especially with that original franchise, we were constantly in Hogwarts, we were constantly in the magical world. So it doesn't quite hit when we see a floating candle or a spinning teaspoon on its own. I think J.K. and David Yates as kind of the visual design of this film does a very good job to illustrate what is magical, what is not, because we're just as much as in real world 1922 New York, as we are in the magical world of it. I think there is.
I like that.
There's a good visual language between the two, which I think again. There's so much care put into the magic that JK has. Puts out there.
They define the lines very neatly.
Exactly.
Between the two worlds, and it's nice to see the difference in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good follow through for this movie, where the theme of all these is very much dealing equally in the magic world and the non-magic world.
Right.
Because it's very focused around wizards being frustrated. That overarching plot is wizards being frustrated with the muggles and the no mages, basically the non-magic users, and what they have to basically sacrifice to keep them protected but not get anything in return.
Yeah.
So the Fantastic Beasts in this film get a lot of love in their design and really is the best part. The creatures themselves are the magic here, and it's unfortunate that more and more we have these films getting distracted from what clearly is the best part of this. I would say there's a lot of really good looking CGI here. It was honestly surprising. Was this first one 2016?
This is 2016.
2016. I will say I have it noted here. It's a bit of a miss, I think, and this is totally preference, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think it's a bit of a miss when it comes to the potential for practical effects or the mix of practical effects. I think about something like how The Mandalorian introduces practical and CGI effects, and I think there could have been a really great opportunity for puppeteering and practical effects when it comes to these creatures and creature design. That said, it is by no means bad. The CGI is great, and I would say the Fantastic Beasts are definitely they get a lot of love into the creative design, and that ties right into what I was saying with the world building. That's
really nice because how often have we just seen bad CGI creatures? It's taking you out. The design's not cool, but then once in a while you'll get. It's good that care was taken into it because again, I mean, not to jump, go from Harry Potter to Lord of the Rings, but it's what was, a saving grace of the Hobbits a little bit was how much was taken into the Dragon Smaug.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
when you get that little bit of love taken in creatures, it's just like, it helps you enjoy the movie more. Big time. So that's good to see that it was there. I mean, it's not like the money wasn't there. It was certainly there.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
for the Fantastic Beasts. But
absolutely.
Yeah, that's good to hear at least.
Yeah. I think a main issue I have with this film is around the pacing. We are with Newt around the creatures, and that's when the film is great. And I really mean great. When he's around creatures, we see it being very lighthearted, very filled with wonder. We really see Newt himself just kind of be an encyclopedic badass, just knowing these creatures in and out. And we see him empowered as our hero in being in his natural element with dealing with these creatures. But constantly we are being pulled away from the namesake of this movie, Fantastic. We're being pulled away from the Fantastic Beasts to focus on the magical enforcement of New York, which is just tremendously a less interesting plot point. Like, I don't care. I care about the Fantastic Beasts, and I care about how entertaining it is to see Newt just know these creatures inside and out, and being able to catch them and be able to love them as well.
So that definitely makes sense, but it's funny hearing it because I haven't watched these. It's funny hearing because like I don't know, I could see how it would be enjoying getting in the weeds and the politicking behind everything.
Right.
I could see how that could actually be done well and kind of cool because it's like it immerses yourself in the world a little bit more.
Sure.
But it wasn't hitting for you. It really wasn't.
It becomes less and less so in both of these sequels.
It becomes less and less about the beast.
About the Fantastic Beasts. Almost comedically, like, why is this still called Fantastic Beasts? For this first one, if you want that balancing act, I think it's fine.
Okay.
But I think, again, it's just a flaw of the writing to not understand what is, or maybe just the screenplay specifically, to not understand what is clearly the more entertaining and the more enjoyable part.
Yeah.
Because the execution of these moments with Newt on screen, again, it's just so enjoyable. The fact that we pull away from him plainly just fails to understand what is working on screen. And this is like over half of the movie is not about Newt, directly.
Oh,
and
that's not good.
Yeah.
And you are there to be with him along the ride.
If only for this first one.
Yeah.
He's writing this book. This is before his first big book that we would know this name in the Harry Potter universe from. It's fun. Make it about the hardships of writing the book, or I don't know. They also a lot is done to make Newt a very, very particular character. He's very introverted and very socially awkward. So I don't know, maybe put some challenge. Maybe the conflict is in the challenges he has to actually write the book itself, not things just happening around him that he kind of stumbles into.
Not the externalities of the world and things around him. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I said, it is a shame because the creatures are so enjoyable. The moments are so light and wonderful and truly magical. And it's so enjoyable to see Newt empowered in what he does, rather when he's put in, especially in the next two films, put more and more in clearly not his natural element, dealing with people, not dealing with creatures. He's awkward, he's reserved, and it just doesn't come off enjoyable. Put him in front of what clearly he's the expert for,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Encyclopedic badass is the note. It's as funny as that sounds, but he really is. It is badass. Like, he has these creatures under lock.
Cool.
Which is great. Maybe my lack of engagement ties into the performances or the writing of actual human characters, but the fact that the overarching plot of the law and the secret bad guy that we set up in this film is what the film series of Fantastic Beasts decides to be based upon is not a good sign of things to come. This first entry is a decent flick with really good aspects to it, but the main plot just fails to understand what the strength of the movie is. We are going to give Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them a 63.
Oh, 63. Okay. Wow, I was expecting a stronger performance.
It's
from this
really,
film.
it's really that distraction. And
so, do you think what is it? It's 2 hours and 12 minutes. So, had they spent? So, you're saying like half the film is kind of like on this extra stuff.
And so much so that I can't even call it extra. I would say it is the plot that happens around the plot.
So, if you brought that down to like 20% of the film.
Sure.
You're well into the 70s.
Absolutely, because clearly there's got to be a drama. There's clearly got to be a tie-in to the characters Newt meets.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just like it's just mind-boggling to me. You watch this film and there is just such joy.
Where it's good, it's good.
Yeah, when it's good, it's really good.
Yeah.
And just the fundamental misunderstanding that the film has.
Okay. So you kind of alluded to the fact of, where you wish what you were seeing more of. You would think maybe they would catch on for number 2, as you were saying, know your audience, know what's good and what's not. But here we have 2 years later, we're in 2018. This is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. Okay. And how are our characters playing here, and where are they set this time?
Sure. So this film introduces nearly every character of the previous movie, plus more. I have what I think I might have referred to on the podcast before, but
what's that?
What I like to call as approximate nerd knowledge.
Okay. Yes, I think you talked about that with Dune.
Yes.
You're well aware enough. You're online enough where you know what the deal is.
Exactly. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I knew that this film was both critically panned and also fan hated as well, which is a pretty bad mix.
Yeah, it didn't do hot with the fans.
Yeah. The long and short of it is this has been lauded for a long time as the worst of the Harry Potter films, which is in a pretty otherwise flawless, bulletproof franchise. You know what I mean?
It was getting that much heat, though, that out of...
Yeah.
Well, at the time, this would have been film number 9
yes,
in the world. And they were saying, and people,
the worst.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's not good. Some of the critique of this film definitely lies into what is done story-wise in that universe. I should say more specifically, the fan outrage is around that. I'll be honest, I don't have an appreciation for it, but I unfortunately am also in agreement with the quality of this film. In Crimes of Grindelwald, we see Newt get entangled with even more law and more political forces, including a young Dumbledore. Ooh. Played by Jude Law, and I would say nearly every aspect I praised of the last film has been grounded down to a dust, instead to tell a moody espionage magic adventure that, again,
kind of sounds cool.
It sounds cool, but why is it Fantastic Beasts?
Of course, for sure.
I'll unveil my suggestion, obviously, for the birds. But Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was supposed to be this book for Newt Scamander. Fantastic one entry should have just been like a once and done, kind of hop in, hop out.
Yeah.
And then guess what? You really want to tell this overarching story between Grindelwald and Dumbledore as these main characters that Newt is getting involved in. Guess what? Newt's more of a cameo in a two-parter that deals with this relationship that clearly this film becomes about.
It is really weird.
It's just
because you're setting up 2 main characters, big characters in the world, and then you kind of sort of just Newt in there.
Yeah,
you just throw him in there.
And then
sprinkle him in a little
more
bit.
and more. What the hoops, Tom, they jump through to get the supporting cast of the first film, even non-magic people back into the magic story. It's just like, why is this ever?
It's almost like they should have just explored Newt and had it been a great story within the world, and now we have more stories in the world.
I would say there's even just such a nice bow on the end of that first film that it was just like, oh wow, yeah, we're all wrapped up, and this film is undoing all of it to create needless drama, to create stakes that don't matter, and again, to the overarching plot, Newt really does not matter here. So the fact that he's our main character is
a shame,
nonsensical.
Yeah, it's a really big shame.
Yeah, like I said, nearly every aspect is grounded down, and I would say this film is just not afraid to resort to nostalgia bait for the audience as the story grows larger and larger. Of course, we revisit Hogwarts. We have Dumbledore. We have character.
Could be good.
It's Easter egg stuff
and bad Easter eggs.
Yeah,
I mean, like you said,
that's where I'll give it a half step, because honestly, I don't have an appreciation for it. You know what I mean? If this was expanded universe Star Wars, I could probably call it all out. But I don't know all of the things, and more importantly, how to feel about these Easter eggs.
Sure.
Are they meaningful, or are they cash grab?
Okay, yeah, of course.
But boy, do I just want to see some Fantastic Beasts. But no.
It's a big drought, this movie, huh?
Yeah, we gotta see Wizard extremists. Wizard extremists rise to power, and kind of an allegory for starting fascism of the time period, and it's just like, wow, it's when are we gonna see a creature? I think the core problem of this film is the logic of the screenplay. The deeper we get into these politics and into these societies of wizards, I'm gonna be 100% honest, the less we see our characters actually acting like wizards. And I think that's a really fundamental problem to the action of this.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm not a massive fan, but I think some of the initial appeal of that of the first Harry Potter franchise is that when wizards are fighting, they're using a lot in their arsenal. It's not just blasting each other, you know what I mean? There's defensive and counter magic.
It's actually part of like what makes it really good. Like that was the huge draw for some people, was just like delving into the world, but just like that knowledge of it's playing chess or playing like Magic the Gathering or something like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Where it's like, it's not just nonsense back and forth shooting beams out of everything. It's like, you're exactly right. There's defensive and offensive moves and everything like that.
There's much more of a strategy. And guess what? Maybe that's a defining quality of a wizard versus like a knight or like an action hero. You know what I mean?
Well, it was cool
be approaching action and conflict differently.
Yeah, and growing up with Harry, who gets more knowledgeable, gets better at that stuff. With this, what you're saying is it's just generic wand battling.
Well, it's not even just the wand, but that's definitely that. We'll get into it for sure. But it's also, I think, where again, I'm describing this more so in the logic of the script. Wizards are not acting like wizards, and I think that's a failure of character writing.
Absolutely,
scenes are just constantly breaking continuity of the tool belt that every adult wizard we're dealing with has. I'll give you an example. A group of wizards will be running away from something. This is a franchise where they can teleport literally anywhere. Why would you run away from danger at all?
No, yeah.
It's just like teleport. You're gone. They can't catch you. It's terrible. And I would say, again, when it comes to the magic itself, it looks lame. It does boil down to just that magic bolt casting and nothing else. The script, more importantly, uses these logic breaks for convenience and lazy writing. It is just straight up lazy writing. I could be wrong. Like I said, I think the appreciation I have for original stories is that it commits to everyone having magic and what that truly means. But this film, I mean, it's just like character, like it would be similar to yelling at a hero on in a story is saying, why aren't you using the sword you have? You know what I mean?
Right.
In front of why wouldn't you use a sword? There's a scene with flames that are growing. It's one of the finales, and they don't conjure water. They don't conjure rubble to snuff out the flames. They are spanking it with they're spanking it with magic. It's like, what? Not only they're literally spanking it. One spanking is a note for the second one as well, or the third one. But I'm telling you, I mean, like, does that sound like engaging action? No. Does that sound like our characters are smart? Does that sound like our characters are out of Hogwarts and know all magic as an adult?
It's so true. It is so true.
It is bad.
It's lame.
But let's talk about that plot a bit. Grindelwald is played by Johnny Depp, and it's an odd one because he gets recast in the next one for this third movie. Johnny Depp as Grindelwald is recruiting wizards to his cause. Again, there is a rising kind of wizard fascism. It's not preachy. If I want to give a slight credit here, even in both of this film and the next one, it's not preachy. It's not trying to say like, oh, we have fascism today or anything like that. It's different. It really is trying to go for like a of the time 1930s.
Right. It's doing a good job at being in its era.
Yes, exactly.
Good.
In the setting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think Johnny Depp is not acting terribly, but there is such a wild characterization to this that it just really, his cause itself is poorly defined. It's finally fleshed out in the second one a little bit better, because I think they realized like what was actually the cause he was recruiting for besides just general like wizard fascism.
Right.
And I would say, especially for him being a political leader that will eventually in the plot run for office, he looks nonsensical. This is a man that has two different colored eyes.
He looks ridiculous.
He looks ridiculous. And
super pale, right?
Yeah.
Looks like a husky.
Yeah.
A really weird, sickly husky.
You're right. Sickly really is the word, too.
Yeah.
And it just comes off ridiculous, especially when plot points in this movie, in Crimes of Grindelwald, is around people being leery of him as obviously the very clear villain here.
Right.
And then him convincing him that he's actually about something else through his political beliefs. Well, guess what? He still looks like the most evil man ever conceived. Like... It's nuts.
It becomes
he comes off ridiculous.
Okay.
Ridiculous.
Okay. Comes off unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Newt's plot is not really dealing with Fantastic Beasts. It's dealing with the shadows of his relationship and past, and I can't tell you how much that was pulling teeth, because we have that nice bow at the end of the first film completely being undone. This is a child ripping through the wrapping paper of the last film. And a huge portion is just spent chasing characters from the last film, and all of it can be resolved in like 3 sentences to each other. But I guess I don't know how to talk. Oh, when Grindelwald's recruiting people, and it's just like, oh my God, just put some cool Pokemon in front of me and have Newt capture them. Like, that's all you need
all
to
you're
do.
looking for.
I know. There is one standout scene with a very large creature. This kind of goes for a quality over quantity approach. That there is one major standout, but again, there's just a critical misunderstanding of what works about this franchise. And
it's called Fantastic Beasts.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think on a realistic level, you don't know a lick about Harry Potter. I think walking out of this film are wondering why it was called Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why is Newt a part of this?
You're probably, if you just go into the second one and watch it, you're probably going to be thinking the Fantastic Beasts are Jude Law and
Beast of
and
Men.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Johnny Depp is
You know what I
definitely
mean?
a beast of this. But I really don't have much more to say about that, or about this film in general. This film is painfully boring. Each story segment it tries to juggle comes off unearned and totally uninteresting. And all of this movie just seems to be stuck in a slow middle. It's like this movie is trying to set up the next movie. And I can tell you folks at home, I watched the next movie, and the next movie is more set up. So it's like, what did we set up? It's real bad. It's not good. And we're gonna go ahead and give Fantastic Beasts: Crime of Grindelwald a 39.
Ooh, a 39. Yeah. I was almost writing a 4 just because I would assume the 40s. But no, it deserves to be in the 30s still, huh?
Yeah.
39, that's a bad score.
It is.
It's a bad score.
It's a bad movie. It's it just lacks joy in a lot of aspects, and where previously the Beast segments were kind of a jaws of life to kind of infuse joy into pretty much the same plot. You know, we have the same tone behind the plot as the first one with those politics and law. But man, it's just less and less Fantastic Beasts.
Okay, so so that was 2018. We're jumping in 2022 now. Are they learning from their mistakes? That's what I really want to know. Are they learning from their mistakes and going for gold and what's good? This is Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yes.
So just right in the title, we just had Grindelwald, and now I'm assuming it's a big focus on Dumbledore.
Yeah, right.
I can only assume.
So right. You'd think. You'd think you wouldn't even Fantastic Beasts at all, but still, that's first in the title. So this again, I'm gonna lean on approximate nerd knowledge, A&K. We'll refer to it as. So this whole Grindelwald plot line is supposed to be leading up to a big duel between him and Dumbledore. The two best wizards on the block. They are also both lovers. A huge plot point is in the homosexual relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, which was not really shown, but I guess it was known in the books that Dumbledore was gay. I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah, I do remember that being talked about even time of. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not like a spoiler or anything.
No. Yeah. You're not going to walk in on Dumbledore. I think it's actually one of the stronger things it does. Once again, you know, if this film just committed to just one thing and maybe just lost some of the baggage of Fantastic Beasts, I think it would be a lot better.
Because it would be its own entity.
Exactly.
Its own product. I mean, really what this would be, it would be an origin story of Dumbledore, who were introduced in Harry Potter as quite an elderly figure.
Yeah, we almost have if again, I'm not a studio exec, but if I had my way, Crimes of Grindelwald would almost be like an Infinity War that we focus just on Grindelwald, we focus just on the bad guy, and then guess what? The follow-up is now the good side of that. You know what I mean? You have both sides, and the type of build-up that would bring. I wouldn't include anything with Fantastic Beasts, and
neither did they.
Yeah, neither did they. So I want to focus on this. So again, this promise of the greatest duel of all time in Harry Potter's mythos between scorned lovers who now are tragically pit against each other. That is the goal of this film. Does it succeed on this?
Oh, boy.
it doesn't. It doesn't.
So it misses on the beast, and it misses on this huge promise.
It misses on the whole point of creating this like greater backstory
Right, yeah.
around Grindelwald. I would say, there is a significant reason why these movies are a part of the Wizarding world at the time. I think for maybe the book fans, there's a lot more appreciation to the setting and the world building because, again, whether it's something so shallow as Easter eggs or calling back to this legendary duel that they were supposed to have at some point, guess what? There's some enjoyment. There's some anticipation to that. And
it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Newt is nowhere a part of that anticipation. So it's unreal. I would say I strongly believe, like I said, these last two films, they just should have been their own thing. Even if you don't take that kind of two sides of the coin, Infinity War example, just some sort of establishment of this is a story about Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and really it just has nothing to do with Newt. The big lead up to this conflict is only one tiny bit, though, as it focuses on the spy operations of Dumbledore's squad. Kind of a secret army of Dumbledore, if you will. Newt, his brother, and even the Muggle Jacob Kowalski, which who has been a character throughout all of these, are all drafted into a plot they have no right being in. As far as I can tell, this grand plan as well that Dumbledore is hatching makes not a lick of sense, and it's a really big problem that I have with this film. Unfortunately, I can't dissect this too much because it is a brand new film.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lean into spoiler territory, but understand that the principle of wizards not acting like wizards and how that affects plot and how that affects logic in the screenplay kind of reaches a critical point here because we have the greatest wizard possibly of all time acting not like a wizard, and it really takes me out of the film like entirely.
It's completely jarring, and that would just throw you off completely.
Exactly. If we're not seeing Dumbledore being the hottest shit on the block, why are we there? You know what I mean?
It's really strange. Really strange.
Yeah. Also, this film is burdened with catching the audience up and putting our characters back in the story that has, again, just jack to do about them. Exposition flies at a mile a minute in this first act. We are given a rap sheet of what the last two films were and why the characters are where they are and why they would have opposition to being a part of the magical world again and this overarching story. It's very manipulative because guess what? They're going to be put in the story.
Right.
And secondly as well, I think it really fails as what exposition is supposed to be. I don't think this catches people up that have not seen the first two films. Because, again, it goes at a mile a minute.
Okay, and at that point, you're sitting there watching it, and your time's being wasted.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because now it's punishing the fans.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right, yeah,
like, no. It's real bad. And, again, this is where, you can say, especially among screenwriting, like, exposition is kind of a dirty word. You don't want to just be giving, dialogue and loads of backstory or anything like that. I think this is an example of where I personally have a problem with exposition because, again, it is wasting time.
Yeah. No, of course, absolutely.
So, a positive swap here is Johnny Depp for Mads Mikkelsen. I am a big fan of Mads Mikkelsen.
Sure.
Go ahead.
No, I'm a fan of him too. I mean,
Right.
in multiple things. That's fine. But you're swapping out a character. You kept Jude Law, and it's just like visually, and as far as storytelling goes, it's like it's a visual story that you're giving us, and it's just very weird to be swapping this out. Because correct me if I'm wrong, the character looks completely different. Like no paleness.
Oh, completely different.
You know what I mean? It's just like, and it's supposed to be the same guy.
True.
But it's still, you say, good swap.
I think it's a good swap because it's for the better. We exchange a cartoonish villain for someone that is actually believable, that would be coming to like a political power and a very charismatic leader, almost a dangerous charisma to him.
Were you saying it was just like, were you having to tell yourself that this is the same guy? You know what I mean? Or did he feel, Did he
don't
do
know.
a good job of being Grindelwald? So it's like, all right, this is Grindelwald.
Yeah, I liked him better than Johnny Depp, so I think overall it's a pass for me.
Okay,
It's
all
a
right.
welcome thing. But no, I think you bring up a good point that like that is jarring.
It's just visual continuity. Is
Yeah.
what you know what I mean?
I mean, he doesn't
It
even
would
have
be-
two different color eyes or all the white hair.
Well, the annoying thing was, if J.K. Rowling, if you see what's coming down the pike for so long, and this is your baby, it's just like, get these actors and get the look down pat the first time.
Absolutely.
Because if you know you're returning to this and returning to this character, make sure Johnny Depp is good for the part.
Yep.
And that you can get him. I mean, was it a contract issue or was it like, no, we got to scrap this character?
I don't
know what I
know.
mean?
I'm not sure.
But the point is, have your shit together.
Absolutely.
If you know you're going to be returning these characters. Because
Absolutely.
that for me would really, it would irk me.
Yeah.
That's good it's good that it was a good move and a step in the right direction.
Right.
As you
the
said,
executed.
because you said,
well.
hey, it's better.
Yes.
But still, for me, it would actually be annoying because
Yeah.
we're talking about big money, big franchise here. Get it together.
And maybe the half step is, hey, this is a world where people can assume different identities visually with magic. Maybe have Johnny Depp in for 5 minutes, and then he's like, "Oh, I need to look a little bit more normal for the election season."
Oh,
like
that- Or if you're swapping out Johnny Depp, swap out Jude Law.
sure, absolutely. That's also a very good point. How do we can we just have follow through both?
Yeah,
you know?
it's just something that I know would get under my skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, for regardless of the kind of the gut punch of the casting swap, is Mads works a lot better. His charisma on screen is much more villainous. He's not just like this clearly like an evil madman. That Johnny Depp's design
Doesn't look like
was.
Jack Frost.
It really is jarring. And I think it just works so much better for what is needed out of the toned back villainy the toned back evil that this film is trying to communicate through its political plot. If anything, Mads might be or Grindelwald in this film is probably some of the best aspects of the movie because of the moments they create for him. However, that I think is an important follow through because that's where the real transfixing, the real bewitching that can happen in people getting drummed up and wrapped up into the politics that he is talking about, the true fascism by this point, because he's talking about like a genocide.
Okay.
So it's just a shame that I think in the last film, if I remember correctly, there was even exposition of why Johnny Depp's character looked that way. And then we throw it all out, we just jump through the hoops for nothing. And I think that's where you hit perfectly, Tom. Like, this is your own franchise. Have foresight to plan it out properly.
Especially when it's something like this.
Yeah.
They had to see 3 in the making.
Oh,
Right?
for sure.
Two didn't button it up completely.
Yeah. Because again, that first one, it still kind of lays the foundation for the whole through line.
Right, right.
know? But yeah, this story is about politics and anger, and let's talk about that for a moment. J.K. writing the political structure of the Wizarding World clearly shows a weak spot in an author that writes a children novel. The building election that is the backbone of this plot is seemingly structureless at the beginning. I don't know how these guys are going to get elected. I'm really not sure at the actual rules of how you got elected in the Wizarding World until there is a plot point involving Newt Scamander that he finds a legendary deer, magical deer that bows to royalty. So guess what? Oh, we found these deers. That's how we're deciding this election, baby. Like it's childish.
Was that part of the Fantastic Beasts?
No.
Oh, it wasn't.
I mean,
wasn't.
I mean, what do you mean? That he's
Well, is that the Fantastic Beasts of the movie?
that he's the one Fantastic
Okay.
Beast.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, jeez, Louise.
Yeah. It is. Man, it just shows that there is a strong suit with J.K. I don't even have an axe to grind with her. There's a strong suit of where she can write, and there's no problem in understanding what your strengths are. If anything, a responsibility of a writer to understand, where they can outsource, where they can fill the gaps. But when it comes to this political structure, this deep type of election, type of treachery is not a highlight of her children's
And if you want
novels.
that to be the story, no, and if you want it to be a side story because you want the history of these characters, then like make them their own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if the beasts are that cool in that first film, like you said,
absolutely.
make 3 films regarding that somehow.
Sure.
And Newt.
Yeah.
The weird thing is he's just sounds like, again, I didn't see it. It sounds like he's taking a less and less role in these films. Like how much is Jude Law in this compared to Newt?
Actually, not much. Newt is forced into this film by just because he's Newt, basically. You know, just because we have to make this about him because the other movies were about him. Right. Okay. You know? I would say this movie is now exactly like 4% Fantastic Beasts. Like 4%.
Fantastic Beasts, the ones that never were.
Yeah. And I would say part of why this is so infuriating, you know, this arc I've had with these films, is that part of the hoop jumping in this film, part of the, you know, the rigmarole of what they're going through, is stripping away the creatures from Newt's arsenal. Like, the one thing he is good at is taken away from him in the first act of this film. And the single enjoyment to any of these films, guess what, now is now unequipped from Newt in his arsenal, in his problem solving as a character, in his problem solving as a wizard. And all of it, again, relates to a nonsense plot around Dumbledore's plan, which just does not make a lick of sense. It really doesn't.
It's a shame.
Yeah. And again, you know, I mean, J.K. is writing this. No one's twisting her arm to write. You know, I mean, she wants to expand this universe. You'd think there would be care to using your characters creatively, maybe an excitement as an author or a writer.
Well, and not only do you have J.K. on this one, you have Steve Kloves, which Steve Kloves is the writer who also helped with all of the Harry Potter movies as well.
There you go.
So it's just like, it should be like the team.
I know.
You know, the team.
I know. It's so wild. This film has very boring colors, very boring magic. We see no creativity beyond the typical magic bolts or throwing rubble or patented wand spank that we saw in the last one. The wizards, again, characters are just not acting like wizards throughout this entire movie. And guess what? By this time, we are dealing with the upper echelon of all of the wizarding world.
Yeah.
Of all.
These are the big boys.
These are not only Dumbledore and Grindelwald, but like the leadership that runs the election of wizards. You don't think these wizards would be hot shit? You don't think they would have an arsenal of creative magic to diffuse and be magical with? You know, it's just, there is no creativity here. It is just lazy, boring action. It is just casting bolts at each other. It is wand spank. and I really do think it really creates just a critical failure to how action is presented in this. Bottom line, like, if the action is not even good, if the action is not even sparking the imagination a bit, what is the point? What is the point of me watching these? You know?
Absolutely. For sure.
Exactly. So, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the franchise, but I'm pretty sure when we saw old Dumbledore actually participate in a fight in the original series, he was using his full arsenal.
It was electric.
Defensive. I forget what one. It's either Order of the Phoenix or the one before it. I don't know. Yeah. You know. Tom and I rolling eyes over here. Which is, you know, I mean, it's also your whose cup of tea. You know, I mean, people could do the same thing with Star Wars. No.
But the point is, like, there were moments in those Harry Potter films where it's just like, this is what we're talking about.
This is
like, give me
amazing wizards.
Yes,
you know?
exactly right.
And there's just no use of that, and Believe me, I'm not saying I'm a screenwriter or want to be a screenwriter, but I just feel like, why wouldn't you want to use the smorgasbord, the entire arsenal of what a wizard could do, and deep cut, spells
absolutely.
and like, hey, got ya, or counter spell, you know what I mean? I don't know. So instead, this movie fails in every way, and really in every way that its disastrous prequel did. The lack of creativity, the lack of logic, and the complete lack of understanding of what works in this film, primarily being its namesake. We will go ahead and give Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore a matching 39.
Get out of here.
A match. It is just as bad.
They're that bad.
They need to go in the grave together.
Really? They're that bad.
They're that bad.
39 is not a good score.
I know. And
it's not a good score.
I was walking into this and I was like, all right, it can no way be worse than Grindelwald. It can no way be worse than the second one. And it honestly, it just
it's just more the same. My God.
That's
so upsetting because, again, 39 is not a good score.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, the first one with the 63, it's like, all right, there's something there.
And if I can return just to that promise of a big duel at the end, I mean, underwhelming.
Oh, my gosh.
So what are we here for? Why did we set up this whole spinoff for?
Such a shame. Such a shame. Wow.
Really shame.
Okay. Not good with a 39, but all right. Okay, then. So with this week, is there anything else you'd like to add, or are we going to roll credits on this week, on this fantastic week we have?
We've had 2 weeks back to back that nothing is cracked above 65. So
it's so true.
Like I said with last week's episode, there's an odd enjoyment in watching the very lows. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of enjoyment with watching just this kind of
these were middle of the roads.
Yeah, and
which sometimes can be really rough.
Yeah, that's honestly the worst. But I'm excited to kind of snap back to what I truly want to watch, and there's some exciting stuff coming out in theaters as well.
No, there is. And I personally, I love that the past 10 movies we reviewed, only 2 are above 50.
Filling out the lows.
I love filling out the lows, yes, sir. But no, Vin, we thank you so much for go ahead and taking our time and giving that look into the Sonic world and the Fantastic Beasts world. We appreciate that. For folks at home, we're just going to run it through one more time. We have Sonic the Hedgehog with a 40%, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 with a 59%. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them with a 63%, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald with a 39%, and Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore with a 39%. We thank you so much, folks, for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating, or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth the watch, or just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. You'll get a producer mention on the next podcast episode, too. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.